Hello everyone, this is Dave Johnson and you are watching Moonride where we are channeling the man in the moon. I have a really controversial channel for you today. I am intending to channel Judas. Judas is not something that came up on my radar, but some people that I work with are like, Dave, he's knocking on the door and he really has a lot to say. Now, I've warned clients and viewers all the time, when you're doing this work, you really need to be very careful. You need to make sure that nothing negative's coming in. There's lots of rioter spirits out there, and everybody's a great old aunt who wants to chatter and get some therapy for you in the lifetime, and that is not productive for you. It's not the evil darkness per se, it's just a distraction. I don't want to give it any more energy than it already has, but you do need to be very careful when you're doing this work. In this regard, it might seem kind of ironic that I am thinking of talking with Judas. But understand that Judas may very well be a misunderstood character. If God is God, and he doesn't have to be the white man with the white robe and the beard and all that stuff. If God is God and everything's supposed to happen, then Judas was supposed to go tell the Romans who Jesus Christ was. And if you listen carefully to a lot of the things that people have sort of reinterpreted for that, and that is that Christ is part of God. Christ told him to do it, and he wouldn't have done it if it wasn't Christ's intention to have him do it. So it might be that Judas has just become this fall guy bad person when he was doing a necessary role for us to understand what Christ's meaning really is. Now, a lot of people might have a really strong reaction. We've talked about these Christian forms and Christ because they did not have a great experience with the Christians' schools or the Christian churches or whatever. You have absolutely every reason to question those churches, those buildings, those institutions. They have become stale. They have become removed to Christ. Not everybody within those forms has. But the church itself has become somewhat removed from Christ, and that's almost any church that you would name. Understand that it could not be the same. The church and Christ could not be the same. I don't really even care if you think of Christ as an idea. That makes no difference to me personally. If you believe in him in a body, if you believe in him in spirit, that's all good, right? So, believe me, I have prepared a good deal today before I speak to Judas, just in case. Okay, Judas, I am ready to meet you. He's showing me something funny and I have no idea what it is. It's sort of almost like a big board with lots of squares in it. No idea what this is. He turns it right side up, he turns it upside down. Judas, I don't know what this means. Oh boy. Okay. Whoa. He's actually coming with Christ by his side. Okay, my job here is not to speak with Christ at the moment, but Christ seems to be standing there next to Judas. Okay, I'm ready. You can cross this river. It's a little river. And Judas is coming to it. I'm like, whoa, dude, you don't need to do that. He's sort of falling on his knees. I'm like, look, man, that's okay, Stand up. God, he's really weeping. It's been very hurtful for him to have been pegged as this murderous character. First of all, don't forget Christ's forgiveness. Christ is somebody who would forgive everyone. He would forgive Donald Trump. He would forgive absolutely everyone that you could imagine. That doesn't mean he accepts their actions as good, but Christ kind of has the ability to understand why people do the things that they do. The source of every cruel act, there is something that happened to that person to cause them to be evil or dark or whatever, or do terrible things. We don't accept the things that they did, but we do understand the origin of why people became like they are. So, Hitler was beaten by his father almost to death almost every single day of his father's life. The only thing that probably saved Hitler's life was the fact that his father drank himself to death when he was fairly young. So, you might ask, where were the friends and neighbors while he was beating this poor kid? What were the school officials doing? What were all those people around, young Hitler doing to protect him from this cruelty? Is it really any surprise if you just ignore this cruelty and let it fester? If you just let a parent beat the heck out of their kid every single day, what did you expect would happen? This does not, again, justify anything that, dark people do. And it's an incredibly difficult thing to forgive such people. But when you get past this lifetime, it does become easier. Don't forget that those people do have to work on this in other lifetimes. They have to face themselves, even I'd say in a greater kind of school outside of lifetimes. I don't know what I'm not capable of understanding what that means. But that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. So Judas, what do you want to tell me? Christ told me to do it. Christ told me to go and sell him out. It was time. God told him it was time. It was time to face it. It was time to create the confrontation between himself and the Roman soldiers. And don't forget the all those Pharisees that were sitting there, and they were also participating in this. I understand Pharisees does not mean Jews, right? This whole idea that the Jews killed Christ is total nonsense. Romans killed Christ, right? And there were various factions around who didn't necessarily support them, even though they were not Romans. Some people did, some people didn't. It had nothing to do with their religion. It had to do with their powers. Christ found me to be the most capable one to do this work. It was kind of like he said, look, man, you can take it. These other kids, they can't. You're the tough one. And that's what he told him. Judas didn't want to do it. And that's why, he betrayed me with a kiss. That kiss was genuine. He really was very sad to do this, but that's what he had to do. That's what he was told to do. He could not contradict Jesus. And he really, really, really didn't want to do it. In some ways, Judas was the most reticent follower. He was the most critical in some ways. I know we think that Thomas was the real doubter, but he really was the one who was the most skeptical and in some ways the most intelligent. Like, he was there asking a lot of questions. He was there seeing these people and what motivated them. He could anticipate what was going to happen. He was warning Christ, look, you've got to move on. These guys are going to kill you. And Christ insisted on staying because he knew that it would be more important to stay and face powers than it was to run away from them. A great example of somebody who's staying where they are, even though it's really, really uncomfortable. So, okay, Judas, tell me more. He said his existence was kind of like this. Imagine you have a tire, and you put the tire over your head and put it around your body, and then you put another tire, and then another tire, until the point where you literally disappear into darkness. He said it was tire by tire. I really didn't want to do it, but I also sacrificed myself and my reputation. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Mm. Hmm. He took the 20 shekels of gold and he tried to give it to, the other followers the others who followed Christ, and they were angry with him and they wouldn't accept it because they blamed him. So he took the money and he gave it to the poorest of the poor. And it occurred to him at that moment that he was going to walk the earth for the rest of his life alone and despised. He wants us to know that many people made sacrifices under Christ. Mary Magdalene, Christ's mother, himself. There were a lot of followers that sacrificed. There were a lot of women that sacrificed that do not get credit. Hmm. So it's very interesting because they're kind of telling me Christ was a fellow who understood the feminine aspects. That although he was a man and the voice of the time to some degree had to be from a man or people would not respect it, it would have been more dangerous even for a woman, so it had to come in a man's body. But the spirit of the moment was not a masculine spirit. It very much was a divine feminine spirit. And that's why women liked him at the time, because he was not like most of the men that they knew. And this is one of the things that people like Judas admired about Christ. And Judas said, I didn't quite have that capacity. I wasn't that good. And he said, so I had my role. My role was to be the bad guy, and Christ's role was to be the good guy. We did what we were supposed to do. Mm. And Judas is kind of saying, Christ forgave me. Not that I did anything wrong, but Christ understood. Why don't you guys? Sometimes all of us are placed in a role, and it's not a role that we necessarily want to be in. It's not a role that we even understand. We're just in this role, and we are the person driving the car when the accident happens. It's not through any kind of negligence. It's not because of anything else. We're just in this role of the driver who causes the accident or the driver who's in the accident. We're just in that role. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's just a sort of unfortunate situation that we're placed in that helps us in our own learning. But there should not be, so much judgment. Many of the people are acting out of ignorance. They just don't know what they're doing wrong. And they make mistakes. That's the nature of humanity. And also, some people have made no mistake. They're just behind the wheel of the car when the semi pulls out in front of them, and so they turn quickly, and there's a child on the corner who they hit. It's just a situation that you are in, and you can't really feel guilty or sorry about it. You can have regrets for the situation, but you might have been put in the most horrible positions in society. Choose between the safety of your family and following, and contradicting your government. Now, would you really do that? Would you really sacrifice your family so that you could change the government? Would you really do that? That may be the wrong choice. It might be the right choice. You don't know, but you're placed in these situations. So understand that a lot of us have experienced the same thing. We have been in the position where everybody despises us for what we do, although we don't really have any choice. And Judas wants to give a lot of empathy and understanding, and he wants us to know that Christ is with us in that empathy and understanding. And Mary is also with us. And if you feel more inclined towards Mary, that is absolutely great. We do not care what image or what form God takes. We don't care. All we care about is that it's authentic. and that it is really God. And it is also very important that you not identify with a religion. Just because you read Christ and you listen to Christ and you're interested, that does not make you a Christian, right? It is just you're just a person that is studying these particular schools, and maybe you're studying well, and maybe you're in relationship to that, but it doesn't make you that. You don't become Christ by studying Christ. You stand in relationship so that you can learn. And whenever you do see somebody that says, I am this, run for cover, okay? No one is a perfect Christian or Buddhist or Muslim. They do not exist, right? All of these people who claim that they are more Christian or more Buddhist or more anything than you, they are people that should give you pause and move away. If you agree that you don't know much, then you're probably in the right position because you're ready to learn, and that's where we all need to be right now. There is going to be a lot to learn in the near future. The next, perhaps 1,000 years are going to be about us opening up and learning. This might seem very frightening, just like your first day of kindergarten, but it's also a world of wonders, and it will open up really cool and beautiful things. You're going to meet great people. And even if you go through some difficulty, you're going to meet great people who also have gone through some difficulty. And then you'll be together, and it'll have so much meaning when you do. When you meet that fellow traveler who's had the same terrible experience that you have, it's easier to accept that experience because it actually puts you in a way to relate to someone. And these experiences do teach you a lot. Don't seek them out, okay? There's enough to go around, right? You can move on from them, but understand there's a good deal of sympathy for people who've made mistakes and for people who've been put in positions that they did not intentionally wish to be in. Many of those people have made a good deal of sacrifice just so that they could go through life as the person who caused the accident or the person who made the mistake. It's a big sacrifice that they chose. Often before they were born, they chose to make that sacrifice. That is what Judas did. He said, I was really reluctant, but I came in and I'm like, all right, this is a job I have to do. I really don't want to do it. He kind of regretted his role, even more than Christ, who did not regret his role per se. It was more acceptable to Christ than to Judas. And remember, everybody has a soul. The darkest person has a soul. You might not like their actions, but and you might even not like that person, but remember, somewhere in there is a soul. Right? Thanks for watching.